Hey everyone, my name is Jake from Umbrella IT Services, and today we're going to be interviewing Mike Knapp from Incrementa Consulting. Mike is going to be teaching us about business strategy and execution, and I'm very excited to learn more from him. So, without any further ado, let's jump into it. I'd like to give Mike from Incrementa a big thank you for coming on today and talking with us about business strategy and execution. So, Mike, thank you so much for coming on. Do you mind telling us a little bit about your experience in the industry?
Well, first, Jake, thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure to have this conversation with you. We had such a great talk a couple weeks ago. I'm looking forward to continuing it.
Absolutely,
So,
same here.
in the industry, um, I actually fell into the industry. It was completely accidental. Back in 2000, I was a quick rising star in the technology area, starting in software development and support, all the way up to CIO. And with the dot-com crash, I found myself without a job. And at that point, you could roll a nickel down the road and 400 technical people would jump out and take the job. So it was almost impossible for me to find anything. So being the bright person I am, I decided I was going to be an entrepreneur. And I started my first business. It was an IT service provider, which grew significantly. We had a great time with it, but it never really grew past me being at the center. No matter what I tried, I couldn't figure out how to get out of being the bottleneck to everything. I absolutely wish I had an advisor, a mentor, something back then that would have helped me break my business out of the place that it was. Eventually, I sold it. I became a management consultant because I had a lot more fun doing the leadership and strategy side of things, and helping businesses continue to find their better way and improve. Um, Fast forward 15 years, and today I work with small and medium-sized businesses, helping them come up with a clear, simple strategy and all of the elements necessary to support it and actually execute it really, really well.
Hmm. And do you think your experience in IT kind of shaped your modern day strategies when it comes to working with these small and medium businesses, or is it kind of an unlearning, relearning situation?
So in some ways, it absolutely helped. Being an IT guy and growing up in that industry, you you really get deeply entrenched into systems thinking. You know, there's some IT people who just think about making sure the computer turns on, but the really um, valuable ones are the ones who think beyond just supporting a computer. They look at the whole system. And the system includes the people, the processes throughout the company, the business needs, the goals, everything. And that was what our focus when we had that IT company was going far beyond. Today, when I'm working with companies, we look at those systems, but we just look at them through a different lens.
Hmm.
And the entire strategic planning exercise, okay, I've come up with a goal, or the business has a goal. They're going to double in revenue in 3 years. We have to look at every system throughout that to see which ones are going to handle that growth. So if they do manage to execute on that top line growth, they don't fail completely on the delivery, and they can maintain a really good bottom line along the way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I've noticed for myself as my business scales and we start to implement new strategies and develop new organizational units and departments, it's very much kind of like the slug situation where you expand a little bit forward and then the back end catches up. And then you expand a little bit forward and the back end catches up. And something that I've always tried to do is kind of get ahead of that curve. And if I know, for example, now we're starting to expand a little more rapidly, I want to have more staff on, make sure we're able to prepare for that. When you're talking about business strategies and executing on them specifically, what would you say is one of the most common things you're helping your clients with just day to day when you first meet a client? Are you doing a total overhaul of their systems? Are you doing a discovery and then kind of figuring out what's broken and what needs fixing? What does it look like when you start with a client from beginning to end?
So normally the first few times I sit down with a business owner, it's more about listening than it
Hmm.
is about just going through a very specific discovery. Um, it's one thing to get a strategic planning facilitator. that you see one time, comes in, does 2 days worth of fancy exercises, and then bang, you have a strategic plan. My world is that of business coaching, which ties the strategic planning element in with the accountability and the coaching side to help continue to actually drive the plan throughout. You need to pick a coach based on the ones that mesh well with you.
Hmm.
So when I'm sitting or getting to know a company, it's really about getting to know that leadership team, and especially the owner or CEO. One of the companies I work with right now, we did one-on-one coaching for months before we actually dived into anything more, because helping the CEO organize her thoughts, get her hiring down right, get the right pieces in place so that she could actually take advantage of the planning process. It was absolutely vital to her success.
Hmm.
So yes, I have assessment tools. I can absolutely send those out and have people come back and know where some of the gaps are. But the best assessment tool, the best thing to do is simply to sit down and say, you have some goals, you have some dreams. Where are your problems? Where are the challenges? What's holding you back? If it was easy, what would it look like? And then just listening really, really well.
Hmm. And when you're listening to these folks, does it matter for yourself personally? Would you take on an IT provider, a watch salesperson, a hair salon, nail salon? Does it matter to you what type of business you're working with as long as they have the financials in place? Or do you specifically stick to a different sort of sector? Like, would you recommend people get business coaches and strategic managers who are going to be specific to their sector? Or is it more a general coaching mindset sort of strategy you're developing with these business owners?
So that is a fantastic question, and thank you. Um, I have a very strong belief that every business should have a core customer.
Mm.
And that's the customer that is going to be able to make the best use of the services provided, absolutely love them. And they're delivered in a way that makes sense to that business. And there's a focus to it. Um, when you ask about the sectors, I work across many sectors. I don't generally work in nonprofit because it has a different entrepreneurial energy that doesn't quite work as well for me. But I work better in the large size of small and mid-sized businesses because the processes that I use are tailored for that audience.
Mm.
And you like in your space, Jake, I'm sure there's a size of business that gets the most value out of your services. Um, Mine is the same way. So I don't generally work with super small business owners or solos or the beauty salon, but there are coaches out there that do an amazing job, and that's what they target.
Yeah. And when you're, let's say that you're a small business owner and you're speaking with somebody who's an entrepreneur, what advice do you give them when it comes to picking a coach and a business strategist that's going to be the right fit for them? Do you have some metrics? Do you have some qualifiers that you would recommend people use when they're starting to look around? Because, again, it is a very, very broad field. As with all professional services today, it is kind of getting commoditized. And how do you recommend people kind of sort through all of these options and they can really find someone like yourself who's going to be a good fit for them?
So my first thing is always focus on the coach
Mm-hmm.
over the framework.
Mm.
Find a coach that you jive with, you connect with, because this is somebody that you as a business owner will be very vulnerable with over time. They are there to provide the mirror, and that will help highlight some of the challenges you're going through. And if it's not someone that you mesh with well, it's never going to create a deep, trusting relationship. Um, Next up, uh, start looking for track record. So you want to talk to a coach that's actually been in the industry, potentially in your industry if there's something specialized to it. And if you when you start talking to references and whatnot, you want to make sure they're actually good at what they do.
Mm.
Um, my I or Sorry, blah, blah, blah. I am a bit of a mumble mouth at times, so
Mm-hmm.
you'll have to excuse me. Then lastly, you start looking at the frameworks. So every coach will come in with a set of tools. And there's some tool sets that are amazing and some that are less so. And you want to actually take a look at that tool set and understand how it's going to transform your business. One of the big things I look for is the coach going to be creating a plan for me, or are we creating a plan and the coach is just helping as the guide in that process?
Mm.
And in the smaller business space, you tend to get coaches that create a plan for you. They create that growth roadmap, whatever they want to call it, to help you accelerate your business. And they go and they interview for a while and they come back and say, here's your plan.
Mm.
The problem with that is you never develop ownership. It's not your plan, it's their plan that you're executing on. If strategic planning and building a business, it's the ultimate team sport.
Mm.
It's about getting that leadership team on the same page and driving forward towards a goal. Well, if somebody hands them the plan, they're just players. If the team builds the plan together and they're fully aligned on the vision of the future they want to achieve, they all take ownership. They actually become partners in making it happen. And that starts to transform the business.
Yeah, I think that's going to be it's going to be a double whammy for a number of reasons, because you're getting the investment, you're getting the emotional investment from everybody. People feel like they're contributing. You're going to get a big morale boost. And then more importantly, it's the give a man a fish, teach a man to fish sort of dynamic, Yes. So that's very, very good to know. You mentioned something there, a growth roadmap. I'm assuming this is one of the staples of developing a business strategy. What are some of these other kind of tools and strategies and resources that a good business coach would help a small business, a local business, an enterprise develop?
So a growth roadmap is the output. The framework I use, the 7 attributes of agile growth, creates a 1-page strategic plan that we call a growth roadmap. You'll get coaches who create a 40-page document.
Yeah.
And those ones will sit up on the top shelf there between Yoda and Chewbacca.
Yeah.
And never get seen again. Whereas EOS, scaling up, and 7 attributes all focus around creating something that's so simple that anyone can get it. That output is incredibly valuable. Because the idea is that if it's so simple that everyone in the business can get it, then everyone in the business can do it. Throughout the process of developing all of the pieces of strategy, you generally dive into the top line growth strategy, which is how you make yourself unique and different. You jump into your execution strategy, which is how you actually make it all happen. But you won't get into your cash flow and your profit, your leadership development, your talent, your systems and processes, and everything to do with your customer and the customer experience. And when you start going into that holistic approach where you're attacking all the different elements, you actually start creating a plan that is full featured enough that it can grow the business massively. And I've worked with smaller businesses with the same size or the same stuff, and $100 million businesses with the same pieces. We just scale the pieces appropriately for where the company is in its growth.
Yeah.
But some of those core elements, most strategic plans don't go and dive into what your customer journey is. But when you do it and you do it well, your customer churn drops down to almost nothing, which means your revenue goes up.
Yeah.
And the experience you create is so valuable.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's so important for people to understand, especially in today's world where, again, everything is getting commoditized. You need to have a comprehensive approach to whatever it is you're doing, right? If you're doing sales, if you're doing marketing, if you're doing technical stuff inside of the business, if you're doing the actual secret sauce development, all these things, if you're not looking at every single aspect of your business and breaking it down, whatever your role is, then you need to expand your horizons, in my opinion. For example, I see so much parallel now between yourself and other guests that explain what they're doing and what we're doing. Because when we're working on an IT system for somebody, I don't set up a computer like you said, and then say my job is done, like some of our competitors do. We go through and we say, okay, what's going on with the users, the workstations, the servers, the networks, the cloud services, the backups, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if I don't consider every aspect of the business related to technology, something is going to flip my car over without me knowing as I'm driving along this road trying to get the system set up, because maybe we didn't consider the phone system. Maybe we didn't consider the fact that the budget wouldn't be there in a year. Maybe we didn't consider the work from home aspect. You know what I mean? There's going to be all these little tiny things that can stack up, and all of a sudden these tiny little snowflakes have made an avalanche, and you're in deep, deep trouble. So I'm very happy to hear you mention that when you guys are devising a plan, you recommend looking at every aspect of the business, including the customer experience, and even the operations and the processes and everything. Because, again, if people are working with somebody and it sounds too good to be true, and you have a gut feeling or you have questions that need to be answered and you're not seeing them addressed, I think that's kind of a red flag nowadays, to just look for another professional service provider who's going to be able to help out and get things done for you and your team. What are some of the benefits that you're seeing your clients experience from, again, when they started working with you, let's say a year to 2 years down the road? If people are executing on these business strategies, are there common goals you lay out for them, or is this all individually laid out and people are achieving things at their own rate?
So I don't lay out any goals for them.
Mm-hmm.
My job is that of teacher, advisor, and facilitator, and then later coach. So really it boils down to what that leadership team develops for the company's goals.
Mm-hmm.
If they turn around and say they want to achieve XYZ in the next 2 years, and they develop a vision for what that looks like, we break it down. We break it down into what we're going to do in the year, then into the quarter, and then we actually have them break it down into week by week.
That's awesome.
In week 1, in order to achieve this quarterly goal, we are going to do XYZ. In week 2, we're going to do XYZ. In week 3, we're going to do XYZ. This chunking actually creates the ability to become far more agile and far more accountable inside the organization. How often is it that you come up with some big project, you say, I'm going to have it done in 3 months, and then the world gets busy. And 2.5 months later, you go, oh crap, I haven't started it yet.
Yeah.
Every client I've spoken to has run into that. And then they fail. But if you actually take the time right at the start to break it down into in week 1, I'm going to do this, and week 2, I'm going to do this. Then when you're holding your leadership team meeting and you check in on all these strategic elements, which are the most important things you're doing for the business. Okay, Project XYZ, it's week 3. Bob, are you on track or off track? I'm off track. Oh, okay, why? Now you have an opportunity to actually solve it on the spot and continue to drive it forward.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. I think that, again, that accountability is the biggest thing there. Like if you break things down and you build out a roadmap and you say, I want to get these 3 things done by the end of the year. We're going to, double in size. We're going to implement a new solution for clients or a new service offering, whichever. And we're going to try to get double the revenue. Whatever it is your goals are. I'm a big believer in what you just said, which is just breaking it down into manageable chunks, breaking it down into either weekly or bi-weekly schedules, making sure that there's accountability for everyone in the roles, weekly check-ins to make sure your team's on track, have a meeting on Monday, have a meeting on Friday, and then just to have fun, and give people the support they need and make sure people can do that. What are some other struggles that you have people bringing you in for? So maybe, again, you've just listed one where people are having an issue accomplishing different tasks, but what are some other common struggles that you see entrepreneurs going through, and what are some of the solutions you provide for those struggles?
One of the biggest challenges almost every entrepreneur in the smaller size runs into is getting them out of the center. Scaling beyond themselves. I'm working with 3 or 4 companies that are going through that right now, where they've hired their first couple of leadership team members, but the CEO is still doing everything. And the CEO or the founder or the president or what do you want to call them, their job, once you hit a certain size, is to let go and do the most valuable things they can do, which is going and thinking about those new products, going and creating partnerships in the market, going and being the spokesperson, developing the strategy. They need to be doing that. So creating that initial leadership team and the roles and responsibilities and getting people to play in their sandboxes, and develop that ability to scale is one of the first things that I deal with any company that's under 10 million in revenue, probably.
Mm.
Although I say that, and I'm thinking back to a company I worked with 2 years ago, they were about 55 million and they had the same problems. So dealing with those role and responsibility dysfunctions, and frankly, the culture of accountability wasn't there because the clarity wasn't there inside the business.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're not clearly outlining each role's expectations, deliverables, and responsibilities, then you're gonna have a bad time for everybody because employees don't feel valued, they feel disassociated, and they don't have direction. And then the boss isn't getting what he needs to have done or she needs to have done. And again, the team kind of just disintegrates in my experience. So learned that lesson the hard way probably 4 years ago, 3 years ago now, where it's super, super important to understand what are you starting with? What is your end result for the customer going to be? What does it take to get that done in terms of people, resources, workflows, procedures, repetitive tasks, one-off tasks, etc. And then just making sure everyone understands what those processes look like, and again, empowering the team to kind of get that stuff done. And it sounds to me, again, like from your experience, that there's a lot of businesses out there that really struggle with that. And I think the bigger you are, the more difficult it would be to resolve that issue. Is that true in your experience?
No.
Hmm.
I don't think it's a size issue to resolve it.
Hmm.
It's a mindset issue to resolve it.
Yeah.
And if those core people aren't ready to let go of being the answer dispenser, of
Mm-hmm.
being the most important and smartest person in the room, then it doesn't matter if you're $1 million business or $100 million business.
Mm.
You always have the same issue, that person is the linchpin. You can't scale beyond them, and that you'll never have a truly engaged team that thinks for themselves and can fly without you. I see it a lot in the small businesses, but that's a leadership development question.
Yeah.
I mean, Jake, when you started your business, it was you, and you did an amazing job, and you built yourself up to a certain level. And it sounds like you've been successful at letting go of some of it and building people that you can trust to actually go do things. But that process is a maturing process, and some
It
people
is.
aren't ready for it. They don't want to do it. They think they do, but they don't actually want to do it.
Yep, 100%. The business development has just having my own business has made me had to mature and evolve in a lot of different ways. And every 3 to 6 months, I just kind of make sure that I take a day or so to just look back and go, "Holy smokes, who's this guy?" You know what I mean? Because like I again, lots of trust issues, lots of issues letting things go. And again, the solution that I've come up with is just designing the system to relate it to the workflow, making
Mm-hmm.
sure people understand it, listening to them. And again, most of the time now, when I hire somebody on, I'm learning from them. And they're saying, "Hey, you had this system. To be frank, it's crap." And I have 11 years experience doing this. I got 15 years experience. I got 2 years experience doing this, whichever it is. And I got hired to do this, and I think we should do it this way, and here's why. And when we start to work together as a team, again, the rising tide lifts all ships kind of thing. And I end up learning from my staff. We end up improving the system. Everyone's happier. The clients are happier. Things are getting done in a much better fashion. And I'm not that bottleneck. And the other business owners aren't the bottleneck where you have 90 different lanes in a grocery store, but everyone can't leave the store until the security guard goes through their bag at the end of the checkout aisles. You know what I mean? It's not an efficient way to run a business. And I realized if I wanted to scale, you're going to need to let go of that stuff. Do you have any other sort of warnings or areas that entrepreneurs kind of struggle with when they're starting to scale up or starting to reorganize their organizations?
So there's a couple of things that I like to highlight. One is the concept of the valley of death.
Hmm.
And every company goes through this. They grow up to, well, I'm just going to randomly say 1 million in revenue.
Hmm.
Then they plateau. And they find themselves looking over the edge, and they start to fall down a little bit. And then if they're lucky, they recover and they grow and grow and grow, and they hit 7, 9, 10 million.
Hmm.
And then they plateau. And then they see that edge again. And what's happening is that the amazing things they did to get them to that milestone are not the things that are going to carry them forward. And it's important that entrepreneurs and business leaders recognize that and their mindset changes. And you've already gone through it, so amazing for you. But their mindset changes to being one that's open to, okay, we did great. How do we improve to be able to get through the next stage? How do we improve? How do we improve? How do we improve? Some of the most dangerous words are, but we've always done it this way.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care if your strategy is, the strategy element of your plan is garbage. If you can get all the other pieces really healthy, your company will continue to flourish. You just may not have the same growth rate.
Mm.
Yeah, so understanding that you need to be able to go and look at all of those pieces of the system and change them and improve them is vitally important. The other piece is that people are incredibly important. And that sounds incredibly simplified. But developing the team and understanding people at an incredibly deep level is one of the most valuable things you can do.
Mm.
So you could build the best strategy in the universe. Actually, I had a client a while back who did this. The CEO went and he wrote an amazing strategic plan. And I remember reviewing going, this is fantastic. But 0% of it was really understanding where the strengths of his team were. There was no diversity of thought because it was all him.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredibly important that you actually build your team and tighten that trust and the relationship within your team so you understand how each other thinks and you have that diversity throughout the process. Because having somebody, if you're you do DISC, which is a personality assessment tool, having everybody who's a high D, a driver, gives you massive gaps. So having a team with all of the different skills means you have everyone with a slightly different lens that can look at the same problem and come up with a slightly different answer, and it'll help you come up with the best answer that's out there.
And do you recommend that to be a top-down process or a bottom-up process? So, for example, let's say that you need to implement a new service or you need to reorganize something, or you're just trying to change your onboarding procedure for internal staff, right? And you need every department to adopt this new strategy. You haven't developed it yet. You just know that the way you're onboarding right now is inefficient, and you want to standardize it, and you want to make it easier for everybody to get great people in their team. So is this something where, as the CEO, I would sit down and say, I'm going to sit down with my coach, we're going to figure this out, we're going to make a rough plan, then we're going to go to each leader in each department, work with them, they're going to tweak it a little bit, and each department has its own version? Or is this something where you go to somebody as a department lead and you ask them, hey, we're doing this new thing, everybody needs to come up with their own way to do this hiring strategy, and then you kind of just look at everyone's different versions and then meld them together at the top level? Do you recommend functioning from a bottom up or a top down sort of operational strategy there?
So
I know it was a little bit confusing phrasing.
No, I know. I'm just trying to come up with the best way to respond to that one, because what you're talking about is a strategic initiative that can transform a piece of the business.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have your quarterly planning session, for example, and your leadership team is together, you have yourself as president, you have your head of operations, you have your financial person, and you have your outsourced HR person there to help out. And you start talking about some of the strengths and weaknesses inside the organization. And you discover, and one of the things that comes out is that you're going to be doing a lot of hiring. Now, we're going to say that you already have a hiring methodology that you really like. And if you don't, the book is called Who, and it's absolutely fantastic for helping you find really strong people and systematize the hiring process. But if you're bringing a lot of people on and you recognize that you need an onboarding process, you don't want to actually go down to the bottom of the team and have everybody come up with their own ideas. Instead, what you would do, you tell your head of HR, or your head of HR would say, well, I'll take care of that. I'll come up with an outline. You make sure that the why for this is incredibly clear.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it important? There might be some specific guidelines you want, and you want to make sure those are agreed upon by the leadership team right from the start. Um, but then you want to empower that person to go and figure it out.
Yeah.
And they might go talk to lots of people and get great feedback and whatnot. They might turn to the last 10 hires and say, what were the best parts of the hiring process? And what were the worst ones? And then use that to start developing a structured process.
That makes sense. So what you want to do is find the best person in your team. Could be you, could be HR, could be IT, could be whatever. Find the person best suited for the job, give them the accountability, give them the reason for the change, and then just empower them to do their best, and then work with them to finalize that and then implement it. Is that correct?
Yes. And now you also mentioned that when you're doing the implementation, sometimes that there's some change challenges that happen with it. Right from the start, you need to have change leadership in place.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that I teach right at the beginning when I'm working with a customer, because developing that skill for change leadership means that you can really empower and engage people in the change, get them excited about the future state, and have them driving it instead of potentially resisting or going, oh, why bother, and then eventually going back to their old ways.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure you have that change plan all designed out with the process. Now that HR person goes away and she doesn't just go implement whatever it is that he or she wants. In the best case, her week one deliverable is to come up with her plan.
Mm-hmm.
Come back to your leadership team and say, here is the employee experience map that we've designed, and here's what we want to do. Does this make sense? And get input again from your leadership team. And everyone nods and goes, yes. But Bob in accounting says, hey, what about if Jake took the new hire out for lunch on the first day to be able to talk really about the vision and what's going to happen with the business in the next 3 years? And everyone nods, and then they add that to the plan so that we're still getting all the knowledge from the whole team in that process.
I think that's great. So yeah, again, just having that open discussion where everybody is able to contribute again, I think is absolutely crucial, especially on a leadership side of things. Like if again, people are being left out, left behind, doesn't matter who it is, you're going to potentially be losing some value there. I've had some of our most valuable ideas come out of our junior service desk guy. And he's like, hey, I noticed this isn't going the way that we should be going if we want to accomplish what you're doing. And then we implement his suggestions, and it's better for everybody because of that. So yeah, I think the open forum and having the change mindset is super important. Do you have any other examples of a healthy mindset that entrepreneurs and executives and leadership teams should have?
One of the things that I love to start them down the path of is that their job is not to be the expert. It's not to be the manager. It's not to know all the details. It's to be the leader and who's responsible for making sure that people actually can be successful with what they do. And to take a coaching mindset. So so often somebody will come up and say, how do I do this? And the immediate response from the leadership team member who was the expert in that space is, oh, you just do XYZ. Unfortunately, by doing that, you've now made it so that that person, A, doesn't have to think, and B, next time, you know what they're going to do? They're going to come to you and ask you the next question.
Yeah.
So we start building that in right from the start. Trying to stop being the answer dispenser, trying to create that coaching mindset, and the idea that your job is no longer being the expert, it's being the leader and the guide who's going to make everyone else around them into the superheroes.
Yeah. What other common mistakes do you see people making when they're just getting started in this sort of avenue?
The biggest one we actually talked about in our pre is taking on too much.
Mm-hmm.
Do 1, 2, 3 things exceptionally well. Knock them out of the ballpark instead of just getting 3 on base and then hoping for the best.
Yeah.
And so many times, when we're doing our execution planning, everyone's so excited. They have so many great ideas. It's
Hmm.
amazing. And then we put them up all on the wall in Q1, and you realize that John has 45 things he said he's going to do this quarter.
Yeah.
But then we take a look, we have to sit back and think, okay, you still have a regular job too. You're working your way to 10 to 20% availability to build the business, but you have to work in the business.
Yeah.
So, what are the one, two, or three maybe most important things that you can do that are going to move knock over the most dominoes? And then let's take those other ideas, either put them into the ideas bin, which is an amazing, important thing, or you're going to move them to the next quarter and then the next quarter. So, yeah, I run into this all the time. 45 ideas, only got one finished. Feel terrible because I'm a loser because I didn't finish everything I said I was going to do. Versus three ideas, did amazing at them all, got three huge wins out of it,
Yeah.
which ramps the whole team up and creates more energy to do more the next quarter.
Yeah, there's two things that I really like about that. One of them is just related to two different folks, Warren Buffett and Steve Jobs. And I like Warren Buffett's ideology on this, which is write out the top 25 things that you need to do in your business right now,
Hmm.
and then cross off the bottom 20 and burn them. And just
That's
focus
awesome.
on those top five. Because if you get distracted by those bottom 20, nothing is going to get done. Like you said, you're going to resent yourself. You're going to feel like a failure. You're not going to get anything done. Accomplish those five things in a year, and then you're going to feel like a winner because you were able to accomplish all five of those things. You look at where you've gone and where you've come from, and then you reassess and you do it again.
Hmm.
And then the Steve Jobs solution to success was say no. And it's the hardest thing an entrepreneur can do. But when people come to you and they have an amazing idea and you know it's a valuable idea, you know it's a valuable change. I piss off my friends all the time, and I annoy some of my coworkers and some of my staff all the time by doing this, by saying we're not focusing on this right now. We have a project at hand. We have a priority that we need to follow, and this is a fantastic idea, and we're going to work on this in 6 months. We're gonna talk about this next week, or whatever it is. Because if you're not getting carried away by that stuff, it just works out so much better for everybody.
And that's was my comment about the ideas bin. I mean, if you're in agile software development, it's the backlog.
Mm-hmm.
All the stuff that's coming in, you throw into the ideas bin. Oh, that's a great idea. Let's put it in the ideas bin to discuss next quarter and
Yeah,
figure out where it fits into our roadmap.
I like that. So you have an ideas bin. What other kind of little gems like that do you recommend for people? I've never even thought about doing that before. I just have a calendar that's got 8,500 different tasks in it.
Yeah, so I'm not a fan of using calendars. I'm not a fan of using spreadsheets. I know that you use Airtable, and that's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Um, every single business that I work with, I really push them very hard to implement some sort of a project or task management tool.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care if it's the one built into Office 365, or it's Trello or Asana, or it doesn't matter. But what you're going to find in your business is there's going to be so many moving pieces that eventually something's going to fall off.
Mm-hmm.
And that task management tool, especially when you have the project for your strategic elements, lets you maintain the accountability and not let things fall off.
Mm.
So if you're using Trello or Planner or something like that, where ideas bin is just a column that you create. You tell everybody, throw stuff in there, and then you can vet them later.
Mm-hmm.
So that ends up being a valuable one. My other one that is, everybody complains they don't have enough time to focus on stuff. So we implement, or I teach block scheduling right from the start, and I make it into a KPI. So the whole team figures out the number of hours per week they're going to commit to doing
Mm.
strategic plan or
I,
strategic elements.
I apologize for interrupting, but just KPI for folks that don't know.
Oh, key performance indicator.
Perfect. Thank you.
It's a simple way. It's a complicated management way of saying metrics. Know what your metrics for success is. So in this, I worked with an IT team a couple of years ago who was overwhelmed, and they never got anything important stuff done. And the team sat down and we figured out exactly what the priorities were. We added up on a giant glass wall, so it was visible to everybody, full roadmap there. And then it was awesome because the IT manager looks to the team, puts his head down his hands, and goes, "Ah, I love this. It is so valuable. I don't think I can get it done."
Hmm.
Like, okay, cool. I'm really, really impressed that he showed that vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, so do you know how to do it? He's like, well, yeah, none of this is hard. I don't have the time. I'm like, that's fair. So we didn't have to work on the execution side. We had to work on prioritization and time management. And what we did was simple. Everyone in the team agreed to a number of hours per week they were going to focus on working on the business,
Yep.
or in their case, on the roadmap to
Yep.
make the business better. The IT manager goes, I think I can squeeze 2 hours a week right now.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone in the team picked a number. Everyone agreed that the number was reasonable and manageable and they could be successful at it. And then they weren't.
Oh, they were not.
No, the first week they completely failed. The
Uh-oh.
second week they completely failed. And there was a little bit of an intent for me here.
No, of course.
Because when I came back to them afterwards, I said, okay, how are you guys doing on getting the roadmap going?
Mm-hmm.
We haven't got anything done. Like, well, did you manage to get the time that you said you were going to do? No. Like, okay. How did you hold each other accountable? Silence. So what we did is we had everybody pull out their mobile device. And the IT manager, he said he was going to do 2 hours a week. I said, pick your 2 hours. And he set up a recurring calendar item for Friday morning from 9:30 till 11:30, for example. And I said, during that time, the rest of you guys, your job is to protect him. No one talks to him. That's his focus time.
Yep.
And they set that up for every member in the team. And then in their Monday leadership or team meeting, the not the daily huddle, but the bigger team meeting that they run every Monday morning, they had to tell the team whether or not they were successful in their focus time. The first week, most of them were successful, but one wasn't. And the IT manager did an amazing thing. He turned around and said, how can we help you be successful with this?
100%. Yeah. That's
And
awesome.
They figured it out. Email was turned off, cell phone was turned off, everything was auto forward or forwarded to someone else, so that person had complete isolation and they can focus on their thing.
Yep.
The metric there became, how many hours did you set aside for working on the roadmap?
Mm-hmm.
When 2 hours became easy, it became 3, and then 4.
Yep.
And yes, we split it over the week. In the end, that IT manager managed to get to the point where he was putting 6 or 8 hours a week into driving the IT plan forward. It took him 3 months.
Yeah.
It took a lot of work of, I'm trying to get to 3 and I don't know what to do. And then having his team turn and say, well, what's the other most biggest thing that you're working on? And he'd give an answer and they're like, I can do that. And that team just transformed around that. And they're getting such success with the roadmap that their workloads were actually dropping.
Yeah, exactly. It's the guys pushing the square-wheeled wagon up the hill, and then the guy shows up with the round wheels, and he's like, hey, I think I found a better way to do this, and it's not now. We're too busy.
Yeah.
So.
And this was one of those situations you probably run into 1,000 times. The rest of the leadership team said there's no additional budget for IT, but you have to get better.
Mm-hmm.
So they couldn't just go buy new servers. They had to find ways to actually fix things properly and develop real change by improving their skills.
What we do with a lot of our clients, actually, I've done the math on this now. It's about 26% reduction in operating and capital expenses once we go in there for about 3 months. Mm-hmm. So what we're able to do after, usually about a year, they start seeing it. 3 months is where we get started with that. I should make that clear. But just by looking at the processes, the workflows, the labor, the software, the tools, all that stuff we look at, we're able to usually end up reducing operating and capital expenses by 25 to 36%. depending on the organization, just through refining those things and kind of having the conversation that you had with those IT managers and this IT team and letting them know work is a gas and it will expand and it will contract given how you allow it to. So if you're going to tell yourself, I'm too busy, I can't spend a half hour a week on IT, I can't spend 15 minutes on it, then you'll end up spending 4 hours on it inadvertently. But if you tell yourself, I'm gonna give myself Tuesday mornings from 7 to 9 a.m. I'm not doing anything on Tuesday mornings except for this, whatever it is. If it's an IT plan, if you're getting a database up and running, if you're getting a new documentation center going, whatever your goal is, I always try to tell my team, you have X amount of time, because we discussed on what's reasonable for you without feeling overwhelmed with your real job. You have this block of time on this day, and you have until this deadline to complete this task, and have at her. And then, like you said, the rest of the team, we run defense for them. You can't get through them over the phone. You can't get over to them on email unless it's an absolute urgent situation. And they have that set time period to be able to do what they need to do. And again, 3 months later, that person is able to accomplish wondrous things. And then they look back and they go, I did it. And then whatever the next task is, again, maybe they allot more time, maybe they allot less time, whatever it is. But it's very, very important to make that conscious decision and that commitment. And the one thing that we struggle in, to be honest with you, is the weekly meetings that you said, the accountability. Yes. This is something where I've always struggled with the consistency of them. And that's something that I'm working on myself. And again, it's something that I'm aware of. But it's very important, I think, for business owners to kind of recognize your own personal shortcomings and then work on them. One of my old ones used to be the trust thing, and then working on that, I was able to kind of now hand off things to other people. I don't have those issues anymore. So if people are feeling discouraged or they feel like they're kind of stuck in the sand, I always recommend taking that incremental approach, and I like the incrementa there, and making sure that they're going to be able to improve personally so that their team can also improve. Do you have any other advice for people that are kind of stuck in that rut? And they kind of need a kickstart, and they can kind of get their team moving on the projects that they need to be moving on, or starting to accomplish the goals they want to accomplish?
So absolutely, there's 1,000 little things. Mm-hmm. And the obvious self-serving one is get a coach, because they're going to hold you as leader accountable. But running a business in some ways is like riding a bike. Mm-hmm. If the bike stops moving, it falls over. But when it stopped moving, the trick is that you just have to start going again. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if your direction's a little bit wrong. Just do something to get another win. And remember, that doesn't necessarily mean getting an next sale. It could be go and fix something. Go make something better.
Clean the office.
Yeah. Go do something to take one step towards a goal.
Yeah.
And if you don't have an idea of what those big goals are, that's okay at first. You go and turn to your team and say, what's the most painful, awful thing here right now? And as long as they don't say it's your smell, which could happen, but they'll generally say, oh, it's this in the order process. It's just awful. It takes us 5 times as long as we need. Fix it.
Yeah. Fix
it publicly. Celebrate the win. Get everybody super excited about that change and that future state. Then ask them what the next one is.
Yeah.
Next one is. Go for quick wins. Don't worry about big stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That was what I was going to say. Is for myself and for the team personally. Again, it's okay. Who's going to label these USB sticks? And then, like you said, with the hygiene thing, it's like, Jake, you need to shower more than once every 3 weeks, man. It's getting outrageous. So then, I can shower every day. That's easy, and then then everyone's like, hey, yay, we work for someone that doesn't smell like a dump, and it's very easy for people to be able to just say, like, hey, I'm wiping my desk down at the end of every day. Or, hey, at least we got those USBs done, and then we clean the office, and this is done. And these little tiny things, again, stack up. And then, again, in a month, everything's great. And like you said, then you can start going after bigger things like, hey, with this order process, this needs an overhaul. And because you've gotten used to spending 15 minutes, 20 minutes a day, whatever it is, accomplishing these other tasks, you can kind of move those bigger projects in and break them down into manageable subtasks. And then, again, look back in a little while and you're good to go. So that's very good to know. That's very good advice.
And the only adjust I would say to what you had there, don't forget about at least. It's
Don't
not
forget
at
what, sorry?
least we did this. You said at least we did this. At least we did this.
Yes.
No, forget at least. It's we did this.
True.
And
Yeah.
I can't stress enough the importance of celebrating and of recognizing when stuff got done.
Mm-hmm.
And with a company that's your size, it's easier to do. In a slightly bigger business, it's a little harder to recognize the process or the progress and make sure that the recognition is there. But it's just as important. Now, that's why I push for things like quarterly town hall meetings, where you can actually tell stories of some of the successes that have happened inside the organization,
Mm.
and that Jake is finally showering daily. Yes, and have the
Exactly.
whole group laugh their head off, but quietly be nodding in the background, going, "Oh, thank God."
Yeah, exactly.
You know, 'cause- and it's those little things, those celebrations, that the stories about the organization, the going, hey, our vision 3 years from now is to be this,
Mm-hmm.
and here's how we've taken a step. All of that is what creates the culture of your organization. It creates the excitement. It creates the energy inside of it to achieve those big goals. And so many people forget about it because they're so busy dealing with the squeaky wheel that they miss all of the exciting things they should celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the things that I have to point or remind myself with kids. Day to day, you're so busy with work and everything else, but I've got these two amazing little girls, and I need to take the time to recognize the amazing things that they're doing and celebrate it with them, even when I have too much to do at work.
Yeah.
Well, your business is your baby, and all the people in it are your family. And you got to do the same thing for all of them. At least if you want a culture with the right mindset that's able to grow, where you don't have employee churn, where people are excited to come in each day. That's the job of a leader.
I totally agree. And that's something else that I had to learn. Again, I'm a very self-critical person. I've had a lot of just mental health challenges with that kind of stuff. And it's seeing members of my team and learning from them and the way that they encourage people that we work with has really taught me a lot, because specifically our service desk manager, he's just saying all the time, like someone will do something during the day and he'll just put in a big GIF and a big party thing inside of the group chat and just be like, shout out to this person, they've done a great job. And after a couple weeks of watching him do that, I'm now doing the same thing. And again, it was always like, I'm very different with it. I would have a big thing at the end of the week, or I would make sure that they understand whenever I talk to them, good job, you did an awesome job here. But with him, it's instant and it's consistent. So it very much does have a positive effect on your team.
Yeah, and so, I as one of my hobbies, I teach meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an incredibly important concept in teaching. That's the moment of learning. And it's the second that you can knock in the positive or negative feedback, or positive or constructive feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do it a minute or two late, you don't have the same impact.
Exactly, yeah.
So having that instant, holy cow, congratulations, that was freaking awesome. You lived our core value of putting customer first. It's so valuable. And then you take those stories and then you put them together so that you can recognize them on a broader scale in that town hall meeting as well. So your service manager might be doing it day to day, and you're doing it for your teams because your service manager is your team, Jake. But then you're also gathering them all together so that you can do something a little bit bigger and broader, and in a batch, in a newsletter, or in storytelling and whatnot. Because storytelling is so incredibly valuable. It's such an important leadership tool. It's how you transfer large parts of your culture and recognize the people who are becoming the heroes inside your business.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I don't know, I believe it's one of the most important skills that a leader can have.
I completely agree with you. I think it's one of the most important skills any human can have, is being able to relatably convey information and things. And again, if you can't tell stories, Doesn't matter what's going on. Even as a joke, I saw a comedian talking about. He was explaining how to become a millionaire, and he was joking, and he was saying you can go to any agency and you can take out $100,000 in debt once or twice, and you can pay back $4 a day, or sorry, $4 a month on this debt. And it's all about stories. When the debt collector calls you, you tell them a story. If you messed up somewhere, you tell the person a story. If you're trying to get ahead, you tell the person a story. And if you tell the person the right story and they can relate to you, you're going to end up paying. I think he was paying $30 a month on like $150,000 loan that he just totally deferred on. It was like the guy was not the brightest guy financially, but he'd been paying $30 a month for like 5 years with 0% interest on it because he told these people a story over the phone. And again, if you're able to convey stories to people, you're going to be able to actually do practical things with that information, like, again, convey values, get things accomplished, align team members, have vendors align with you, have other people relate and see your strategic vision. So many things in business and so many things personally speaking as well. So, because people don't care about numbers. You know what I mean? If you go to people and go, hey, we're going to make $7 million this year and you're going to make this much money and we're going to have a 47% close rate within 24 hours, and people don't care. But if it's like, hey, we're going to help this firm accomplish this thing so that they can get this goal, or we're going to help this family do this thing, or we're going to help my sister do this, whatever, then people start to relate more if you explain the why, as you mentioned before, behind it through a story.
And that's absolutely right. You want to gather people together through purpose and the impact they're going to create. The numbers are metrics to know whether or not you're being successful at that. But one of the foundational elements that we build in every organization, and you weave throughout the DNA, is what is the purpose of the organization? And it's got to be something that excites people, that makes people want to become part of it and devote their creative energies into your organization. One company I worked with is a professional services firm in an incredibly boring space. And, when I first sat down with the CEO, his whole thing was, well, I want to make a lot of money. He was a subject matter expert. And where he was fantastic, because when I started my IT business, my whole point was to make a bunch of money. But as you start building the team and everything else, you want to make sure you develop a purpose beyond that money that people can really align to. In my technology business, it was around accelerating businesses using technology.
Yeah.
For his business, it was actually unlocking a source of funding so that business owners can achieve their goals, which suddenly became way more interesting. And if you think about a telescope, so that became the telescope they looked through. And on the other end, the North Star they were aligning to, their big, hairy, audacious goal, was based on the impact that they could have. And they discovered that in 10 years, they could have a $200 million impact to BC's economy. They can get $200 million into the hands of entrepreneurs and of small business and medium business owners to help them develop their companies more. So here you have a whole bunch of very technical people doing very, honestly, boring work that would make me fall asleep in 3 seconds, going, and up on their wall it says 200 million in impact. How do you think they felt?
Yeah, it's going to change the game every day.
Every single day. And then every quarter, we put out, we took that 200 million goal at the top, and underneath we put where we were. Only 100,000 this quarter. We added 300,000 next quarter, and everyone celebrated every single time. And when they got to milestones, they got up to $10 million. The CEO took everyone out for a surprise lunch.
Yeah.
What's happening in the background? He's making a bunch of money. Everyone's making a bunch of money, but they're having a massive impact. And that transformed the team. Everyone pulled together around purpose instead of just getting their report finished. And everyone started going a little bit above and beyond. And the storytelling aspect changed. Because it's one thing to walk into a potential client and say, we do IT. It's another thing to walk into that prospective client and say, we have this vision where technology eliminates the roadblocks inside your business. It improves productivity. It connects people more. It helps them drive and innovate so you can be strategic and focus on your expertise. Our job is to make that happen. I'll talk to the second service provider, not the first one.
Mm-hmm.
The storytelling changed because you tie it around that purpose. You don't necessarily have to tell them our goal is to help 100,000 companies do XYZ. That may be internal, but you never know. It might be one that ties really well into your storytelling.
Absolutely. We spoke with Michelle Sorgaroli about something very, very similar, which is the business differentiation. And I think it's so crucial that people, especially entrepreneurs and business leaders and executives, take the time, especially nowadays with all of this instant gratification and all these distractions and all this crap going on in the world. People who want to make a difference and have visions and have this drive, they need to slow down and they need to talk to people like you and Michelle and get this bird's eye view. And you need to slow down and understand why you're doing what you're doing. And one of the reasons why I brought Michelle up is because she says that what she works with her clients on is what gets you out of bed in the morning and what differentiates you between somebody else. And in 2020, again, I don't mean any offense by it to anybody, but we're all commoditized. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're selling watches, I can search a watch and I can find the cheapest price on Instagram in 2 seconds. On eBay, 2 seconds. Amazon, 2 seconds. If you're an accountant, I can do the same thing. I can shop around to 100 different accountants online and I can find whoever I want. But if you're going to compete on things, it should be what is your unique approach to it as the business owner, so you can build your internal organization and your external relationships to match who you are and what you're doing. You mentioned that meditation is very important to you. So maybe it's so important to you that you need to make sure that those values and the processes and all of the mindsets that you achieve from meditation are brought into your staff, and you have people on your staff that find that to be a common value, and you guys all take a lot of experience from that aspect. But whatever it is, you need to figure out what differentiates you from the rest of the crowd and the rest of the herd so that you can have that messaging, you can have that identity, and you can really start to hit home on it. You can tell stories around it. And it's funny because your IT strategy is very, very similar to ours, which is leveraging technology to achieve businesses' goals so that we can, again, expedite their growth and help them achieve what they need to achieve. But there's a number of other things that I find very empowering and fascinating about the technology and why I do what I do. And Michelle was saying that one of the biggest issues people run into is they sterilize themselves. You know, they make sure that everything is, I always forget the word for this, but it's like a hospital room. You know what I mean? It's been totally sanitized and it's been completely wiped down, and it's just this public friendly thing. But if you just are true to yourself, you get a lot of value out of that.
So first, I got to give major props to Michelle. You guys had a great conversation. I watched it. It was fantastic.
She's amazing.
Developing that differentiation, developing the unique and differentiated value proposition, that is the core strategy. So if you're looking at top line strategy, it's really about what problems do you solve, why should people buy from you, and who do you sell to?
Mm-hmm.
Those 3 questions. And they will evolve over time. But as you start developing who you are as an organization, elements of that tie into everything. So I remember the first time I did my company's core values, and this is not actually that long ago. My coach looked at them and said, well, that's good and all, but it's not who you are.
Exactly.
And I kind of looked at him, and he explained something really simple. When you sterilize, like you just talked about, it's when you end up creating the core values that end up on the wall and nobody cares about, because it's not who you are. If this is going to be part of your DNA, it has to be who you are. You know, so I'm actually certified in helping people discover their why. There's a framework with the Y Institute that I use for doing it. It's the first step. Let's figure out how your brain works and your why,
Mm-hmm.
and make sure we tie that into your purpose and that into your values and that into your differentiators. Mine is finding a better way, and my purpose developed from there to helping, in business. I tweak it a little and I say helping business leaders and owners find a better way to achieve their goals. But really, it's helping anybody find a better way to achieve what they want. So that covers me through my meditation practice, and it covers me through raising my children. That why is everything. I also have a thing for superheroes. So when you look at my tagline, it's "We make you the hero,"
Mm-hmm.
which is very much a differentiator
Yeah.
right from the start. Because my role is never to be the smartest person in the room. It's never to be, I'm sad to say, it's never to be Batman or Luke Skywalker. My role is to be Yoda and help you become the next Jedi. So finding those elements that are you and integrating them completely into every aspect of your business is how you create a sweater that fits instead of the itchy sweater.
I think that's super, super important. Before we start wrapping it up here, I do have a couple of other questions for you. One of them being, do you have any resources or market leaders that you recommend people check out?
So I put out an annual book list.
Mm-hmm.
It's by far the most popular resource of anything that we've done,
Mm-hmm.
which is hilarious because we'll do a webinar every month on a different problem that businesses have, and we get some great attendance. But when I go do my speaking and everything else, and I mention this book or that book or whatever, the book list gets downloaded thousands upon thousands upon thousands of times. So I'll make sure that there's a link for you to it for your show notes. The 2020 list will come out in September.
Awesome.
And there's some good ones that are going to be on that list that really opened my eyes in different ways.
Perfect. I'm really looking forward to sharing that with everybody. That's going to be down in the description for everybody on YouTube and on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. That's going to be at anchor.fm/Umbrella IT Services in the description there. And make sure that everybody goes and checks that out. And I know you have an event coming up as well. It's going to be happening next week on the 15th of September, correct?
So I'm running a workshop. Think of it almost like a boot camp to help companies get back on that bike and get riding and moving forward again. And this is so especially important after COVID, when everyone's kind of taking a kick in the teeth. Either they've gone one way and they're so busy they can't handle it, or they've gone the other way and they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
This is not a webinar. It is not going to be boring. This is a facilitated workshop where you bring your leadership team in, and we're going to work together on some of the core elements of your plan, and then we're going to create an execution plan and give you the tools to start moving forward with it the next day and make measurable progress immediately. It's designed for those small to mid-sized businesses, and you bring your whole leadership team for one price. So first session starts on September 15th, as you so nicely said. But there's also 2 other sessions with different timings. One starting September 30th, another on October 13th, to be able to make it so companies can fit in. We're not letting many companies in, maximum of 10 per group, and there'll be multiple coaches there to help you every step along the way.
That's so awesome, Mike. I'm very happy that, again, there's a local resource in Vancouver that's starting to really take the initiative to help business owners get back and up and running from the zombie apocalypse, because I know so many people that are just, the morale is so hard right now, and I've spoken to many others in the area, like Kevin McLeod and a number of other folks that I've interviewed, and just people that have mentioned to me that your event is going on, and everyone is just so excited about it and just can't wait to get started, because it really will be reinvigorating for so many different people and their teams.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it because it's going to be fun. It's going to be high energy, actually working, actually action oriented.
Yep.
I'm not a big fan of doing the pre-recorded webinars.
Mm-hmm.
They get terribly boring. I like dynamic. I like playing off everyone's energy. So we're gonna have fun with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think, again, as I mentioned earlier, it's super important for people to work with people like you and Michelle and take the time to go to events like this. So many people are going to go, it's this many hours on the 15th, but I have this thing to do. And anyone that takes the time and they book it off, they go to this event, they meet these people, they have these conversations, I guarantee you every single one of the people that goes is going to be years and years ahead in their development of the people that skipped it, because they're taking the time, they're building the initiative, they're learning the skills, and then just the next day you're going to look back and go, all the stress is gone, all I feel accomplished, I have a clear direction, I have a clear mind, and people are going to be able to actually have achievable, attainable goals and get that fire back and get back into your groove and get your mojo back, I guess. Because again, you've got that clear direction. You took the time to get the bird's eye view. You've now got a community of other people going through the same thing. And there's so many other benefits to doing stuff like this. So I'm very excited for it.
Thank you, Jake. I don't think I could have sold it any better myself. I'm just going to sit back and let you do it from now on.
I have a fee to talk.
I'm okay with that.
I'm just kidding. But yeah, do you have anything else that you want to promote or discuss before we start wrapping it up?
No, this has been absolutely fantastic. And my big thing is, if you have a dream, start writing it down, create goals, and just come up with a plan to make them happen. There's nothing worse when you're 20, 30, 40 years down the line in your business, just when you look back and go, I wish I did such and such.
Mm-hmm.
That regret is awful. When I sold my business, I wish I had a coach that would have helped me take it further. I wish I had somebody that could have mentored me on how to run that business. And maybe I wouldn't have fallen out of love with it. Maybe it'd still be here today.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows?
Thankfully, it's not, because now you're here with us.
Thankfully, I have so much more fun doing this.
Yeah. Well, again, it seems like you've really hit something that you're passionate about. You're incredibly talented at it. And again, I'm very, very thankful that you took the time today to come onto the show and kind of share this information with everybody. So again, thank you so much for coming on with us today, Mike. And again, we're going to have the links for everybody who wants to get in touch with you in the description. We're going to have links to the event in the description. All that good stuff is going to be down there. And what's the best way for people to get a hold of you? Just audio speaking.
Well, there's they can always drop me an email, and I'll give you that. But I'll also give you a link directly to my calendar, so people can just go grab a 30-minute call, and we'll have a virtual coffee.
Awesome. Okay, that's so awesome. So again, thank you so much for coming on today, Mike. And I hope this gives all the listeners out there a fresh perspective on their business, different ways that they can kind of build strategies and execute on them. And I'm very much looking forward to our next conversation, and I'm looking forward to September 15th. So thank you so much again for coming on, Mike.
No problem. Thank you so very much, Jake.
We'll talk to you soon. Bye. And I think that does it for today's video. If you could please leave a like on this video, it really helps us out. If you want to see more videos like this, then please hit subscribe. If you have a suggestion for a future video or a guest you'd like to see on the show, please leave a comment down below or email us at techtips@umbrellaitservices.ca. Have a great day and see you all soon.